Testing, testing, testing. Okay, are we live? Okay, on your mark, get set, go. Good afternoon, y'all. This is the man in the black mask, and he's back as always. So, let us begin, shall we? The man in the black mask wants to talk about a Bloods gang member that jumped four corrections officers at Rikers Island. Four corrections officers who jumped. You know what I'm saying? How does one Bloods gang member jump four corrections officers at Rikers Island? How did all this shit happen? I never heard nothing about this before. I heard about, corrections officers jumping inmates and inmates jumping COs, but it's usually in wolf packs. But this here is a one-man army. You understand? He jumped four COs in one day. How do you fucking explain it? Okay, let me read this article to you. Four corrections officers beat up by Bloods gang member at Rikers Island. See? Many of you are just now hearing this, including myself. Four Rikers corrections officers were rushed to the hospital after what their union reps call an unprovoked attack by an inmate who is a Bloods gang member. Well, they got that refuted because of his reputation for violence. The violence left the Corrections Officers Benevolent Association demanding the resignation of City Council member Danny Drum, who has lobbied since 2017 for reforming and ultimately shutting the jail in his Queens district. Last night, four dedicated NYC corrections officers were sent to the hospital after being brutally assaulted by a gang member, Cobra President Benny Boschel Jr. said in a statement. The assault happened at 5:30 p.m. Friday at Rikers' oldest Bantam Correctional Center, Boschel said. Now, OBCC is a punitive segregation unit for disorderly and dangerous inmates. A corrections officer was letting an inmate out of his cell when the inmate, a Bloods member being held on a felony charge, allegedly jumped him, Boschio said. The inmate punched the officer in the face, fracturing his nose with blood everywhere. Now, this guy must be the next fucking Mike Tyson. He could fight. The guard also suffered a concussion, Boschio said, and three officers who rushed to help subdue the inmate suffered injuries, including a broken finger and sprained wrist. This incident is just one of the countless assaults on our corrections officers that have occurred recently. Assaults on our officers are up 15% this year. Instead of holding the assaulted inmates accountable for their crimes, Councilmember Danny Drum blames the victims of these assaults. And he's actually glorifying the animals. It's weird. I don't know what to think of that. But, to me, everything is just one-sided now. He has failed our corrections officers, and his victim blaming is a disgrace to the office he holds. He must resign now. As recently as this week, Drum has criticized what he called abusive conditions at Rikers suffered. He said by inmates, not officers. He cannot immediately be reached for comment. He has sponsored a bill calling for a ban on solitary confinement in city jails. Now, the day before, I was talking about this other Rikers inmate named Peter Rodriguez who held up a position at Rikers Island and he threatened to shoot a guy's face off and smash his head in with an oxygen tank, and it took like 3 hours to free the guy. I mean, I'm sure a lot of you can't believe the warden would set up an innocent man to be killed. Almost killed, let alone. And that position, I don't blame him for suing Rikers because, again, he nearly lost his life due to two pieces of shit. And trust me, I would have sued my damn self if I was that physician that got hit on Rikers Island for no reason. Because I'll tell you, mass shit be happening down there. So, if all of you got kids locked up at Rikers, keep your fingers crossed. Because with this pandemic, anything can happen between the guards and the inmates. Think about Gladiator School. Think about the program. Just because we don't hear nothing about them don't mean it's not happening. That's why the man in the black mask is urging you, audience members, to pray for your loved ones that's locked up on Rikers Island. You gotta go on your kids or your grandkids. Now, I gotta admit though, this Blood's gang member, he's probably somewhat crazy. I don't know. That he managed to get the one upper hand on these corrections officers. Now, you'd have thought he could beat Mike Tyson in the ring. I mean, who knows? Who knows if he could beat Mike Tyson? I don't even know if Peter Rodriguez could beat Mike Tyson. You know, the dude that held up this position at Rikers. But yo, I gotta admit though, that place, man, it's like a zoo down here. If the problems ain't the inmates, it's definitely the CO. And yo, I've been hearing such two-sided stuff about Rikers, you know, with these union members and everything else. I don't know which side to believe. But if I had been there before, I would have known firsthand whether the problem was the inmates or the CO. But if the problem was the COs, I would have put them assholes on blast as soon as I got out. Yo, and let them know that, yo, these officers doing this and that to the inmates and making us violent. You know what I'm saying? That's not to excuse the shit that we end up doing, but at the same time, we're not going to allow ourselves to be abused by these officers. We're not going to be treated like slaves just because we're incarcerated. But I do admit, though, as for this Bloods gang member, they'll probably put him in isolation, and they'll probably, they'll probably put him in gloves and mittens or whatever, just like they did to shit Anaya Ferguson. You know, when she was at Rikers, and she jumped the CO, they had to put her in mittens and gloves too, and shackles. I'm sure a lot of you remember the Anaya Ferguson case. I do very well. Because she's at this prison where Pamela Smart is, you know, Bedford Hills Correctional, after she jumped in at CO, you know, at the Albion Prison Hospital where she was being held. And I still think that the ban on solitary confinement should stay in place because of what happened to Khalid Browder. Because I'll tell you something. Khalid Browder was the reason why DROM pushed for Rikers Island to be shut down in the first place. Because I told you about this innocent man, Khalid Browder, who suffered abuse at the hands of both the inmates and the COs while he was locked up at Rikers Island. Because it wasn't for the theft itself, but it was the probation hold. But you know, it was a lot of things, which is why he didn't get out of jail sooner, because he was on papers at the time for joyriding in a stolen ice cream shop along with a few friends. But Browder was the only one that got locked up, and he came out, he was damaged and destroyed beyond repair. Fubar, fucked up beyond all repairs. And trust me, I wouldn't wish that on nobody. And when I think of Khalid Browder, I think that could have been me. You know, that could have been any of my family members too, especially a kid. That comes out all busted and destroyed, you know. But like I said, you know, I still think Rikers needs to be shut down. Because like I said, if the problem ain't the officers, it's definitely the COs. I don't know whether the COs did something to this dude that made him do what he did or what. I don't know. I mean, this is just the beginning. Because they only bring out some of the small parts, you know. You know, like the tip of the iceberg thing, they bring out the small parts of an already bad situation. And, yo, I gotta admit though, in a place like Rikers, shit happens. And then I begin to wonder, which is worse? Being in jail or being in a psych ward? I don't know. And, yo, I don't know what to make of all this, other than it's fucked up, you know? But this pandemic just worsens the stuff that's happening at Rikers Island. A lot of you are blaming the pandemic, and myself too. You know, the stresses of being locked up without protection and everything else. Shit, I go crazy too, you know? But I'm not trying to justify the inmates' actions or whatever, but I'm just saying, you know, anything can happen. We don't know who's responsible. We don't know if it's the officers or the inmates. But we won't know until we hear more about this, or whether the inmate's going to be charged or whatever. But I'm sure a lot of that is being under review, under investigation, so to speak. Because whenever an inmate or corrections officer is attacked at Rikers, they do an investigation, you know. And whenever an inmate or CO dies in custody, they do an inquest. So, you know, like I said, man, the man in the black mask wants you to pray for your loved ones that's at Rikers right now with this pandemic. Pray for your loved ones that may be at the tombs too. Because whatever don't happen at Rikers happens at the tombs. And whatever don't happen at the tombs happens at Rikers Island. So I just want you to be aware of the stuff that's going on there. Because trust me, I wouldn't want this for nobody. I was almost sent to Rikers, but thankfully I made bail. I gotta be frank with you about something. That was bullshit. I could have been Khalid Browder before Khalid Browder if I had spent like 5 years on Rikers. I mean, can you believe that shit? I know a lot of you are thinking, this could have been me. Could have been my son, my daughter, my grandson, my granddaughter, my little brother, my little sister, my little cousin, blase, 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 the whole 9 yards. And so, again, say a prayer, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and drop a question underneath the screen and tell me what you think about either the council member or the inmate or the corrections officers at Rikers that got hurt. So, drop a question underneath the screen after you like and subscribe. And it's up to you, man. But thank you for listening to the Man in the Black Mask. And good luck, be well, and have a good day.